As I've been to one of his talks before, so as I recall, I believe he used to be an advisor to the South African government as an economist. And as I say, this month we're very lucky to have Hooshmand Badee, who is an academic economist with a doctoral degree. His research sounds very interesting. It was on the Baha'i teachings on economics and their implications for the Baha'i community and the wider society. He's published 4 books on the Baha'i faith and economics. He's been lecturing for 25 years. But then in terms of Baha'i service, he served as a member of the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of Bangladesh for 9 years, and as a member of the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of St. Vincent and the Grenadine for 10 years. So a long career of both Baha'i service, administrative service, and as an economist. And so it's very interesting to hear how, from this sort of well-informed Baha'i perspective, he views the economic life of humanity. As I say, next month will be Professor Iraj Abedin. The following month, so that will be October, there's going to be short 10-minute presentations by a member of the special interest group. And then the month after that, we're going to take stock of where we are. So that will be our 5th or 6th meeting and say, from this input of some of these perspectives of Baha'i teaching and economics, what the focus of the special interest group is going to be from there. I'm pretty sure Richard has muted everyone. If you could remain muted, because background noise can be very disturbing. If you have any questions, please write them into the chat. And then at the end of Hooshmand's presentation, which he says will be about 45, maybe 50 minutes, we'll then ask him to, we'll work through the questions and he'll answer the questions there. I'm sure you've all got experience. It can be somewhat chaotic in Zoom, particularly with this many participants, but it becomes very easy to just put your questions into the chat. That's it from me, I believe. As Hooshmand mentioned, he's recording this, so that recording will hopefully be available in the future. And I'm going to pass over to Hooshmand. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Bill. And let me also welcome everyone to this seminar. And thank you for having me as a part of Association for Baha'i Studies and also the European Baha'i Business Forum. I am sure friends had other things to do tonight, but chose to attend this session. And I hope you will find what I have to say useful. The title of this presentation is Broken Capitalism Fixable? Well, when we ask this question, the immediate response should be which type of capitalism we are talking about. Because there are varieties of capitalism, including laissez-faire capitalism, including manufacturing capitalism, financial, welfare capitalism, and so on. So which type of capitalism I'm going to talk about? And the answer is none of them. Because the capitalism we are having today is a mixture of various types, which is a part of the free market economy. Therefore, the main aim of this presentation is to see the role of this capitalism in the free market economy. And the aim is not really fixing capitalism in next 45 minutes. And in fact, there is no simple and standard answer to this question. Books have been written and published, articles have been written, research is underway, but each one with a different view and different outcome. However, they all have one thing in common, that the future of capitalism is in crisis. So the aim of this presentation, friends, is to raise an awareness that capitalism is going through a crisis. So should capitalism be fixed or totally be removed? And if removed, then what is the alternative? And if to be fixed, what should be its new look? One way to argue is that the system should be fixed and saved because it has many advantages. As Paul Collier, a highly respected Oxford economist, in his book, The Future of Capitalism, stated, capitalism needs to be managed, not defeated. In one hand, the capitalist is helping the economy in many ways by creating employment opportunities, advancing economic growth, doing capital investment, introducing advanced technology, producing innovative products, investing on IT and research and development, and many, many more. In fact, this kind of sophisticated and advanced lifestyle we are enjoying today could not be in place without heavy investment by manufacturing capitalism. So in brief, capitalism is increasing productivity, opportunity, prosperity, and freedom. But on the other hand, trade, if not done properly, becomes very harmful to the entire society. It creates wealth through greed. It gives rise to fraud. It creates some very rich and some people very poor. It is a way of increasing corruption. It produces commodities that are harmful and destructive. It can be discriminative. There is no consideration of environmental protection and much more. So in brief, capitalism is unstable, unequal, undemocratic, and exploitative. So what are we doing wrong for something like trade that is a part of human life for thousands of years? Therefore, friends, let's not try to defeat capitalism, but to see how it can be managed better. Before continuing, I will very much like to briefly explain the difference between capitalism and free market economy for the benefits of some of the friends who are not familiar with this subject. Capitalism is focused on the creation of wealth and ownership of factors of production and capital, whereas the free market economy is focused on the exchange of wealth and distribution of goods and services. The process by which capitalism emerged, evolved, and spread around the world are the subject of extensive debate among historians. The history of capitalism is diverse and has many debated roots, and is mainly emerged in Great Britain and the Netherlands from around 16th and 17th century. The Dutch model was focused on moving goods from markets where they were cheap to markets where they were expensive for making more profit. The main focus was on trade rather than on production. Therefore, the building up of wealth by merchants was without the emergence of capitalist production. However, the Great Britain model was wealth creation through industrialization and production method, especially from the time of Industrial Revolution and the need for capital accumulation associated with the concentration of wealth and economic power. Therefore, around this time, capitalism gradually became the dominant economic system, first in Britain, then in Europe, and gradually spread throughout the world. Before going back to the main theme of this presentation, let me also add here that for thousands of years, we had a decentralized economic approach, which was mainly the responsibility of families. And that didn't work. Then, for about 70 years, we had a total centralization of economics, all from top. For example, former Soviet Union. And that didn't work either. So now there is an opportunity for the free market economy to work, but with a good foundation. In this presentation, I'd like to offer a few suggestions for fixing this broken capitalism. The modern capitalism has been transformed, of course, from one form to another in the last 200 years. For example, in the year 1840s, big cities were created with no adequate public services for the health. Then in 1940s, we had a different type of capitalism during the Great Depression and high level of unemployment. Then comes to 1980s. This is an important year for several reasons. One is in regard to globalization, and that not all countries benefited equally because there wasn't a level playing field. And as a result, countries like India and China achieved a high rate of economic growth, and several 100 million people came out of absolute poverty. But some other parts of the world, especially Africa, missed the opportunity. And then we come to 2008, a period of global financial crisis, which is a big story, and we can talk about that tonight. So, friends, in order to manage capitalism, we need to look at the free market economy, and in particular, the cycle of production in which capitalism is only a part of it. Now, we always had markets. Market was a part of human life for thousands of years. However, it is in the last 200-300 years that the market has become more orderly. In my talk tonight, I refer to it as a free market capitalism and not free market economy, because I want to include all participants of the market, including the capitalist. So let me start with this existing model of free market capitalism, introduced by the 18th century philosophers and economists, and it is still working throughout the world. Of course, at different degrees. For example, with less government involvement and much more freedom in the market in countries like USA, and with a greater degree of involvement, government involvement, and less freedom in countries like China and North Korea. The United Kingdom is more in the middle, with an active participation of both private and public sectors. Now, with this slide, very briefly, I am going to look at each phase of the cycle of production of the free market capitalism to get some idea about its performance and with its inconsistency of the claim of its founders that the market in the long run balance itself. It is with this figure and problems associated with each phase of the cycle of production that I want to show a broken free market capitalism. So let's start with the needs and wants. Close to 8 billion people in the world require goods and services. at all times. How much we need and how much we want is based on our purchasing power and our willingness to pay and ability to pay. This phase of the economy is suffering from the choice of needs and wants of those selfish, greedy, and lazy consumers with little or no considerations to other people and other places, and no regard to preserving the ecosystem. Then organizations are established to respond to our needs and wants. Profit motive and its maximization is the main objective of these organizations. They use a variety of techniques to reduce their cost and increase profit. And they do anything to achieve this. Examples include exploitation, discrimination, paying low wage, paying fewer taxes, having easy access to cheaper natural resources, and causing environmental damage with no responsibility to fix it. The wealth of some of these organizations, known as multinational corporations, is bigger than the entire wealth of a country. And the income of some of the chief executives of these companies are up to 200 to 300 times larger than the income of employees working in the same industry. Then products are produced. A good number of these products are unnecessary, destructive, and damaging to our health and to natural environment. The main market of some of these products are mainly the rich countries. These products then enter to the market. The market uses all kinds of techniques to attract customers and to sell products, including all types of misleading advertisements and a progressive, relentless competition. The function of the market is distribution. Distribution is based on people's ability to pay. This is the most unjust and unfair part of this free market capitalism. This is the part that has led to increasing the gap between the rich and the poor. The rational choice theory of the free market capitalism states that people are rational thinkers and they know best what's good for them. And the market in the long run balances itself. However, in practice, it's a different story. Balancing the market is a fantasy. The fact that tonight more than 1 billion people go to their bed hungry is a sign that the market is not balancing itself. And finally, consumption. In some parts of the world, consumption is so much that they had to come with the idea of recycling to get rid of the wastage. The consumer society has led to the consumerism, and this is another big challenge of our time. Consumerism is spreading to every part of the world, even to the poor countries and developing countries. The notion of the attractiveness of alternatives, encouraging consumers to buy similar products all the time. And in this slide, as you see, consumption destroys production and the cycle repeats itself. So there is a crisis in every phase of the market. And the story of the inconsistency of the free market capitalism is not finished yet. It is expected to be with us for some time before it can be fixed. Of course, most capitalists are aware of these challenges and these problems, and they are aware that the time has come to either fix it or end it. Now, friends, what should be or who should be blamed here? The free market capitalism or the participants of the free market capitalism. It can be argued that capitalist is only one part of the problem. The other part of the problem is linked to the rest of the cycle of the production, including consumers, shareholders, financial institutions, government and government agencies, sellers, marketers, manufacturers, educational institutions, families, and religious institutions. All of them are responsible and contribute to the crisis of this free market capitalism. In other words, we are all a part of it, directly or indirectly. We cannot separate ourselves from this market. We are in it every day. And because we are a part of it, we should be also a part to fix it. Now, how to fix it? How do we get from this present condition of free market capitalism to a more sensible, equitable, and sustainable economy? I think, friends, economics is misunderstood. Most people relate economics to goods and services, and money and wealth, and banking and prices. This is a narrow understanding of economics. Economics is about human life, about relationship. And when it goes wrong, humans are suffering. The three fundamental principles of self-interest and competition and minimum government involvement are rooted in the system. I will discuss each assumption here very briefly with a Baha'i view on each topic. This will be a brief discussion, and the topics are very heavy, need much more time to talk about them. And if you are interested to know more about these topics, especially from a Baha'i perspective, I suggest to read an article written by a good friend of mine, Professor Farhad Rasekh, entitled The Baha'i Faith and the Free Market Economy. One of the basic assumptions of free market capitalism is that actors of the market are rational thinkers, and the market reach equilibrium or to a balanced economy by itself. Therefore, there is no need for minimum government involvement. Or even some of the experts say there is no need of government intervention at all. One thing I have to clarify here, friends, that when we say free market economy, it doesn't mean free from government. It means free from land and free from rent, especially. Now, pandemic COVID-19 exposed some of the flaws of this kind of thinking in a free market capitalism, in that it failed to save the lives of people and the economy. The main motive of capitalists is in areas that produce maximum profit. And there are numerous activities in society, such as various pandemics, that does not generate profit. Therefore, as we saw during this pandemic COVID-19, government involvement was indeed needed most urgently. In one hand, government required to step in and inject stimulus financial package into the economy, and on the other hand, trying to slow the spread of the disease to protect vulnerable populations. By definition, and in a free market economy, which is based on profit intensive, these are not the kind of activities that a capitalist is interested in. Also, as there was too much emphasis on the market to take care of the economy, we noticed that governments were not prepared and didn't have the right equipment to take care of the COVID-19. Therefore, COVID-19 is actually an opportunity to rethink our economy in relation to both government involvement and also business models. The Baha'i view supports government intervention in the market to balance the economy and advancing a more equitable society, which in turn benefits the market. In particular, government involvement is required in those areas that the free market economy does not show an interest because there is little or no profit available. Abdu'l-Bahá uses the concept of household when explaining the concept of arrangement of society. For example, he said, this household is not well managed. This household is not living under perfect law. Then he continues and refers to the need for a legislation to aid the proper functioning of a household, the whole community, or a nation. He said, a law must be given to this family by means of which all the members of this family will enjoy equal well-being and happiness. In this passage, using the concept of household, Abdu'l-Bahá talks about the role of government in establishing legislation to ensure that the well-being of the whole nation is created. The activities of the government and the market are interdependent. They need to cooperate. The market alone is not able to remove inequalities and provide welfare for all the citizens. For example, the creation of public services that are essential pillars of the European welfare state could not be left to the market alone. A few words about self-interest. In self-interest, a choice has to be made, and that choice is the best one available for a person. Most people make most of their choices in their own self-interest. The notion of self-interest is one of the pillars of the free market capitalism stated by Adam Smith in The Wealth of Nations in 1776. Of course, Smith does not denounce social justice and benevolent activities, but the emphasis is that benevolent activities are for outside the market. It is for the members of the family, for those we know, and self-interest is for the market to function properly. In other words, economic man for the inside of the market and spiritual man for outside the market. Now, friends, to be fair to Smith, I must mention that in his earlier publication called The Theory of Moral Sentiment in 1759, he reconciles people outside of the market with those inside the market. So to better understand Smith's view, my suggestion is to read The Theory of Moral Sentiment first. If Adam Smith were alive today, he would be shocked to see those selfish, greedy, lazy consumers. The Baha'i view is making choices that promote social interest, collective interest, rather than self-interest. Baha'is are told to stay away from all kinds of selfish and egoistic activities. But the challenge with this view is that it is much easier to think of what is good for one's own self and for our own friends and family than those that we have no idea about them, or what is best for others. But looking again at COVID-19 in the last few months, wonderful things have happened that was signs of true altruistic nature of human beings. And this is demonstrated by all sorts of people and business organizations and governments as a part of transforming resources for the benefits of others, without knowing who are the beneficiaries. Hundreds of examples are online for extraordinary benevolent activities that are taking place. Abdu'l-Bahá describes self-interest in relation to the duality of human nature. According to him, humans possess a spiritual or higher nature and material or lower nature. He said, in one, he approaches God. In the other, he lives for the world alone. According to Abdu'l-Bahá, the impulse of self-interest belongs to the lower nature of human being. The virtue of benevolence belongs to the higher nature of human beings and is a source of human perfection and true happiness. Therefore, friends, we are not economic man. We are spiritual by nature, and economics is just a means for spiritual growth. The third basic assumption of free market capitalism is competition. It's worth knowing and understanding the reason for having competition as one of the pillars of the free market capitalism. The competition was needed during the Industrial Revolution in 18th century with an increasing level of manufacturing products. The competition was necessary as a motivational factor for capitalists to invest more and create a competitive market to sell innovative products. Heavy investment by the capitalist in one hand, and division of labor and economies of scale on the other hand, was the cause of increasing the level of output. Manufacturers needed a much bigger market than the Great Britain market for the distribution of their products. There was a need to attract the rest of Europe, and even more than that, the whole world. Competition played a major role in the process of distribution. However, from mid-20th century, competition has changed its face. What we are having today is a relentless, aggressive competition. In practice, through this kind of competition and an uncontrolled and unregulated market, small and vulnerable businesses are destroyed and eventually exit the market. And others are even scared to enter to the market because they are not able to compete with those huge corporations. The Baha'i writings suggest cooperation instead of aggressive competition. Of course, the use of cooperation, like any other aspects of the market, may be conducted morally or immorally. Let me just say one example. It was just a few years ago that 3 supermarkets in England cooperated and increased the price of dairy products, and as a result gained 120 million pounds additional profit in 1 year. Fortunately, with government regulation and investigation by the Office of Fair Trade, the 3 supermarkets were punished with a penalty of exactly 120 million pounds. In the Baha'i writings, competition is associated with the lower nature of humans, and cooperation associated with the higher nature of humans. So, friends, let's once again look at the 3 fundamental principles of free market capitalism. The principle of minimum government involvement, the principle of self-interest, and the principle of aggressive competition. Economic ideas are always and closely a product of their own time and place. These principles and ideologies, which are rooted in the system of free market capitalism, were working at a particular time, that was around 17th to 19th century, and in a particular place, mainly Europe, and for a particular purpose, selling innovative products of manufacturers. However, they are not suitable for an ideal global society, and certainly have no place in the new world order of Bahá'u'lláh, in which the Baha'i economic system of the future will be a part of it. As we use these basic assumptions of economics to critically examine the market in the light of spiritual principles, it becomes clear that not only these assumptions are not aligned with spiritual principles, but that the system is set in such a way that in many cases it punishes those whose economic behavior are more consistent with spiritual principles. So, what should be the new look of this free market capitalism? Once again, pandemic COVID-19 demonstrated that for any alternative system of conducting human affairs, it is extremely important to consider the interconnectedness of people and nations of the world. The pandemic COVID-19 is a clear example of the interconnectedness of people and nations. Abdu'l-Bahá said, "For none is self-sufficiency any longer possible." As Amartya Sen, a critic of capitalism, stated, "The relationship between different members of the economy must be put right. Only then there will be enough to go around." So if we want free market capitalism to function properly, the relationship among the participants must be put right. Now, few words about the concept of wealth in the Baha'i writings. The Baha'i writings do not condemn wealth creation. Wealth creation is actually appreciated if it is earned rightfully through honest work and is spent sensibly. The invisible hand of Adam Smith are mainly prices and the act of competition. But humans are the drivers of price and competition. And I like to use the concept of divine invisible hands, such as truthfulness and trustworthiness. Through such spiritual principles, the whole society reaches to a balanced economy. Bahá'u'lláh in this statement says, "Having attained the stage of fulfillment and reached his maturity, man standeth in need of wealth. And such wealth as he acquired through crafts or professions is commendable and praiseworthy. This statement of Abdu'l-Bahá, of Bahá'u'lláh, has important economic and moral implications. Bahá'u'lláh does not state that wealth is immoral. He rather accepts the need for it when a person reaches the stage of maturity. Now, the question is, what is the stage of maturity? Well, each one of us may have a different view on this. In my view, it can be viewed as when a person has developed intellectually and spiritually to a point when we are able to take on responsibility for ourselves and for others, so that the wealth earned through engaging in some sort of productive work can be spent sensibly and responsibly. The level of maturity will have an impact on a person to spend the wealth on those products that are right for human dignity. This would then inspire producers to produce those products that are demanded by responsible consumers. In fact, the level of maturity will inspire all the participants of the market to act responsibly. Therefore, the entire society will benefit when people reach the stage of maturity. Similarly, Abdu'l-Bahá describes how wealth should be acquired and how to be spent. He said here, wealth is praiseworthy in the highest degree if it is acquired by an individual's own effort and the grace of God, in commerce, agriculture, art, and industry, and if it be expended for philanthropic purposes. Now, according to this passage, the first condition for acquiring wealth is that it must be earned by one's own efforts. This confirms the need to work and be a productive member of the community. The second condition is that the income earned to be spent on philanthropic activities. This is an indication that the Baha'i community is directed towards attaining a culture of philanthropic, humanitarian, and benevolent activities. In these two passages, Baha'u'lláh and Abdu'l-Bahá reconcile commerce, which is close to the passion of capitalists, and benevolence activities, which are close to the passion of philanthropists. It is through such reconciliation and reunion that I like to use the term philanthrocapitalist. Means those who are investing in socially and ethically responsible projects. The idea of philanthrocapitalist will cover both economic man and spiritual man. And from the writings of Shoghi Effendi, Baha'i economic system would prevent, among others, the gradual control of wealth in the hands of a few and the resulting state of both extremes, wealth and poverty. There is nothing in the teachings against some kind of capitalism. Its present form, though, would require adjustments to be made. In the Baha'i economic system of the future, private ownership will be retained, but will be controlled, regulated, and even restricted. Now, friends, we can use the input-output model to explain the term philanthrocapitalist with the help of the divine invisible hand. The model shows the process of converting inputs to produce output. It can be used to explain the need for those products that are sustainable. By sustainable or sustainability, I mean products that are environmentally friendly, economically beneficial, and ethically commendable. Now, we can choose to use all the resources available to us to make those products that are destructive, harmful, and unnecessary to humans and to nature, or we can choose to use resources to produce products that are necessary and beneficial. Once truthfulness and trustworthiness and others such as capability and knowledge and skills are added to the process of transferring input into output, the choices of producing output become constructive, useful, ethical, and sustainable. By using this model, we can bring the benevolent activities of the outside of the market into the inside of the market. Therefore, to make conscious choices, moral and spiritual principles must be considered as another resource and added to the input section and producing products that are befitting human dignity and preserving our nature. The 2008 global financial crisis, that idea was there is a need to go to solve the problem, and there is a need to go beyond the rational choice theory and the free market ideology and capitalism. The root cause of the 2008 global financial crisis, friends, was not money. It was not monetary, but the breakdown of the trust and honesty among all agents of the market. And several thinkers of our time confirm such self-destruction of trade that eventually may destroy capitalism from within. For example, Paul Collier stated, capitalism is delivering for some people, but leaving others behind. Joseph Stiglitz states that this capitalism has created rich cities with poor people. And Amartya Sen, the critics of capitalism, stated that capitalism is lacking morality. So it is possible to fix capitalism through transformation process by using ethics in all phases of the free market capitalism. Consumers should accept moral obligation to consume products that are sustainable. Firms have to accept moral obligation to produce products that are demanded by responsible consumers. The government must accept moral obligation to provide good governance. Parents must accept the responsibility and obligation to teach their children moral obligation about the purpose of life. Therefore, if we want to try to fix the present broken capitalism or the free market capitalism, we have to start with its participants, with the actors of the economy. We cannot do it overnight, of course, but that's the only way. Maintaining such a high standard of moral conduct in all aspects of the economy requires to create a type of culture where it would be easy to apply these principles. And this will become more effective if children and junior youths are raised with moral education, along with knowing the purpose of wealth and the purpose of life. With COVID-19, we feel more united wherever we are than before, even in a distance. The truth of the unity of humankind is becoming apparent to an increasing number of people. And any economic system of the future must be based on unity and interconnectedness of people and nations of the world. But is there a hope? Well, these are the samples of hundreds and thousands of drawings by children. The message to coronavirus is that don't kill my friends. I love everyone. These are strong passages and messages from very young children. These children in 20, 30 years' time will enter to different parts of the society as important actors of the public and private sectors. With the new consciousness that is developing with our younger generation, they will make decisions that are based on the reality of love and compassion for the entire humanity. These children will move the world in the right direction for building a better world. So friends, yes, I believe there is a hope for the future to create a better free market capitalism, which would be caring economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hooshmand. A very stimulating presentation.